genre.
Welcome back to The Doctor's Companion Presents Doctor Who The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Cass Fredrickson.
I'm Nick Jimenez.
And I'm Scott Corelli.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing The Lodger, the 11th Doctor's ninth story.
12 years old, this story. 12
Nuh-uh.
years. 12. Aired in June of 2010, 12 years ago.
All right, I'm out.
Made me...
Bye.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah. The weirder one is the fact that next week's episode, or the next episode we're covering, Robot of Sherwood, was 8 years ago. That seems insane to me. That seems even more insane than this being 12 years. Yeah.
And we talked about it when it was live.
I know. That was 8 years
my
ago.
God.
Yeah, I know. Time keeps on slipping.
Well, it's interesting because, immediately it's like, wow, like James Corden 12 years ago, Matt Smith 12 years ago, Karen Gillan 12 years ago. And it's like, it's for me, from my perspective, it's like been a ton of time, but also like no time at all.
Right.
Of like, it feels like centuries ago. Like, wow, look at all the life and stuff that James Corden and Matt Smith and Karen Gillan have done, and my own life, I guess. But also, like, they all basically kind of look the same.
That's true. I would say that Matt Smith is starting to show his age a little bit, and so he doesn't quite. I was like watching this episode. I was like, oh, he does have like a baby face here. He's very young, but more or less, Karen Gillan looks the same. I would say, more or less.
What were you
going to say, Nick?
There's I think there's a franchisography or something, or maybe it was dueling genre. Anyway, we were talking about the phenomenon of seeing only one character in an actor forever.
Yep.
Like, doesn't matter what, I will only ever see the Doctor when I see Peter Capaldi. I have the opposite thing where whichever project I have seen you in last, that is who you are to me. So watching The Lodger today was really weird because like I am fully in like Matt Smith as Daemon Targaryen.
Oh no.
That's who you are. And so seeing him be like Tigger again was like, whoa, this is jarring.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like that. I'm like that as well. I always get thrown with James Corden because I just think of him as Craig. And so every time I'm like, what's the name of that late night host? Craig something? Craig? And they're like, Craig Robertson or like Craig, whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, no. The one that does the karaoke. And they're like, James Corden. And I was like, oh yeah, right. That's right. Craig isn't his real name. That's right. Yeah. So I don't know. Okay, so this episode is written by Gareth Roberts. Gareth Roberts, his first Doctor Who script was the Shakespeare Code. That was the first time he wrote for the show. However, it was not the first time he intended to write for the show. Originally, in season 2, there was going to be, before it was decided that Mickey would become a companion for a while, there was going to be an episode where Rose is stuck in the TARDIS flying through the galaxy while 10 has to move in with Mickey, and they were going to like deal with their shit in terms of like how much Mickey like doesn't like the Doctor and is like really not into him like taking Rose away, and they were like going to deal with all of that while also like having like silly the Doctor is a roommate shenanigans. That was always intended to be an episode in season 2 of Doctor Who, but as the season started sort of breaking out and Russell T Davies had like a good idea of like what season 2 was going to look like, it was decided that it didn't fit anymore. And so that episode idea instead became a comic strip in Doctor Who Monthly that Gareth Edwards wrote. Gareth Edwards, that Gareth Roberts wrote. And it is basically that. It's Ten and Mickey. And but it's a little more silly and not as emotionally charged as the original intention for the live action episode would have been. But Moffat this whole time, who is like friends with Gareth Roberts, had heard about this idea of like the Doctor as a roommate, and he was like, that idea is just silly enough to work. I love that idea. And he was thinking about it all the time. And eventually, when he took over the show and he invited Gareth to write an episode in season 5, he was like, I want you to do that, the Doctor Who roommate episode. And so he was like, but rethink it with the new team. And so, yeah, so then that's what he ended up doing. This was at one point he is pitching an episode, which I don't know what the concept of this episode is. No one seems to know that material, but it was an episode called Death to the Doctor. That was an episode that he had pitched for Series 5 and they were going to do, but then the budget got crazy and he was like, actually, instead of doing that episode that would have been like big and expensive, remember that roommate thing? Let's do that instead, and we'll film it at the very, very tail end of Series 5 when we have run out of all of our money and there's just enough left over to film your episode, and we'll continuously rewrite it to bring the budget lower and lower and lower depending on what we need. And so that's what they did. And there were some extra scenes that they never ended up shooting, and I do miss a few of those. One of those episodes was, or one of those scenes was like, let's see if I can find it. It was a let's see. There was like a scene where they go to a pub quiz, and the team is excited because the Doctor's really good at pub quiz, and then it like transitions and he has gotten every answer right the entire time, and no one else has gotten an answer right, and everyone is really annoyed that the Doctor is like a know-it-all at the pub quiz. And they cut that scene out. And there was another scene that was also really funny like that. Oh, they were playing video games, and it was a first-person shooter, and they were playing video games together, and rather than shoot anybody, the Doctor uses the game to go and talk to the bad guys and talk them into putting their weapons down and ending the war. and Craig is just like, I don't even know how you're doing this.
That's funny.
But they cut both of those things because just to like, I don't know, cut back on, like, they would have had to build the video game for that scene, and then the pub quiz was like, well, we'd have to like have a pub set or go to a location, and it'll just save us money not to have
extras.
That. Yeah, and extras, totally. So so it is interesting. At one point, the villain of the episode was going to be the episode was going to be called Mrs. Meglos, and it was going to be a sequel to Meglos, like the Fourth Doctor story. But they decided that Meglos with like this, it had like, a spiky head design. They were like, oh, this is too close to the characters that were just in the End of Time, so we don't want to reuse that. So then they ended up just like going with like a new, like, kind of generic villain.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, the episode was going to be called Mrs. Megloss. And then at another point, the episode was called Something at the Top of the Stairs, and then Don't Go Up the Stairs, and then eventually they just circled back to the original title of the comic strip, which was The Lodger. It is interesting. I will say my one complaint with this episode, which is that the villain is very similar to a lot of villains this season in Series 5, which is like not a living being that is like, I don't know, like it's very confusing. It feels very like Prisoner Zero, and it feels very similar to what's the other one I was thinking of? I don't know. It just like the Beast Below. It feels a little Beast Below-ish. Like there was just like a very rote kind of like Doctor Who stock villain that Moffat was using throughout Series 5, and I don't think he realized how similar, how samey all of these villains were. But this one does suffer from that, I think. Yeah,
the misunderstood, waylaid, like sympathetic, like maroon alien.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say it reminds me of the stuff that we're gonna be talking about next time with like Capaldi, because like it's not an alien, it's like it's like a ship program. So like
right,
it's like, you know, like robots or whatever.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, but it does feel there's just something very samey about like the projection of a human that isn't really a human, but it's tricking other humans. Like I feel like we see that a lot in Series 5.
Kind of like not to going into a little bit about the Capaldi episode next week. It's like not necessarily a malevolent force, just like an emotionless mechanical force.
Right, right. Which is also very similar to The Girl in the Fireplace, another very famous Moffat story where it's just dumb robots making stupid mistakes because they don't understand how humans work, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is I think it's a really funny episode. I think it's the funniest episode of Series 5, arguably. And it's just fun seeing the Doctor in like very mundane scenarios. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm just gonna say it. I think James Corden's great in this. I really do. I think he's really, really fun and sweet and a perfect put upon straight man opposite the Doctor. I think that they should have left it at this and not come back and did a sequel. Because I think the sequel is Diminishing Returns. But I like this. I like this a lot. What do you guys think? Cass?
I love this episode.
Yeah.
I like less than a minute into it when we see the TARDIS set, like that shot of like the full TARDIS set. I like swore because I was just like, dude, I miss this in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Like it just like the reaction that I had to just like seeing that and like this team and like re-immersing myself in like this world and this era was like so visceral and like joyful. And I agree. I think James Corden is really charming and funny in this episode. So for a long time I didn't understand like why people hated him a lot. I guess now I do, but like no, he's great in this. And I really like his chemistry with both the actress who plays his love interest and the Doctor. So.
Daisy Haggard, who plays Sophie, who I've also seen in a bunch of stuff since this. And she's really funny. Like she's just a really funny actress. She's in a bunch of
really
stuff.
Good.
She was in episodes. Nick, the like sort of proto Entourage, where it's like about like British writers coming to America and making a remake of their British show that they became famous for
with Matt LeBlanc.
We're with Matt LeBlanc playing himself. And she's like an assistant in that, where she just always has this sourpuss look on her face that everyone's like, why does your face always look like that? And she's like, what do you mean? And she just like I don't know. She just looks like she just smelled something terrible every time she talks. She's really funny on it. I don't
funny.
know. Nick, you're a big fan of this episode, right?
I have been for many years, and I remember it very fondly. And I think it's funny watching it in isolation. It reminded me of because this crazy lark of an episode has this hard right ending of just reality hitting Amy in the face. And,
yeah.
And then we go right into that amazing. Nothing got me more hyped than the promo at the end for the Pandora
Yeah.
Code.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I think that has a lot to do of why I love this episode so much. And, we say this a lot on the show that we believe season 5 to be a perfect season of television. Or near perfect. They're just and I think this episode coming off the heels of, such big, crazy episodes and before such an explosive finale, it's just the domesticity of it is just so delightful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it speaks to the confidence of it kind of makes sense that you said they filmed this at the very, very end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Because Smith and Gillen are just so comfortable in these roles at this point that you're just having fun watching them go on this caper.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. So, it's interesting. It's also interesting. I guess this is just a little, I don't know. This is the kind of nerd shit that I get hung up on when I read about behind the scenes stuff. So we talked about this with the Russell T Davies era, how Russell sort of invented the concept of the Dr. Light and or Companion Light episode to save money on the course of the show, because while they're budgeted for 13 episodes, they would film 14 so that they could have the Christmas special, et cetera, et cetera. And so that started with season 2 of the show, because obviously series 1 didn't have a Christmas special, because that Christmas special would have been shot with, the first Tenet episode. So that's part of series 2, and so on and so forth. Well, a similar thing happens here, which is that he was like, oh yeah, Russell said I need to have a Companion Light or a Dr. Light episode, whatever. And so let's do that to save money. But what he ends up doing is realizing that oh wait, the Christmas special was filmed by Russell as part of those specials that he did with Tenet. So I don't have to budget for that. And so he's like, oh, so maybe we don't need to do a Dr. Light episode. And then he just systematically blew through his budget so hardcore over the course of series 5 that he was like, ooh, maybe we do. Okay. And then that's how we get to the lodger. But I just think that that's so funny that he was like, we actually don't need to do that. And then this season was expensive, quite expensive. So,
I have I didn't know about the comic strip thing, and
yeah,
I'm kind of glad that it gestated for a few years, because I don't think this story happening to 10 would be as funny and perfect for 11. I think because 11's kind of got that weird kind of Cat in the Hat quality about him.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
Totally. I do agree with that. However, and that's the thing. If this was if it was the episode that I was pitching that Gareth Roberts was planning on writing, that is an episode that I would absolutely want to see if it was written by Russell T Davies. But written by anyone else, I don't know that I care about their feelings on the 10 and Mickey relationship. I only care about Russell's feelings on that relationship. So if anyone else is writing it, I don't have as much interest. Whereas this just being a random put upon guy just happens into the Doctor being his roommate, that's just kooky enough to work. I love that. I think this energy is perfect.
Did y'all notice early on, I think it's even in the cold open, where Craig and Sophie are Sophie are in the apartment. On the fridge, we see an advertisement for the Van Gogh exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I did notice that this time.
That's really fun. and that was just the last episode too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a nice carryover. Another thing that I think is interesting about the Moffat era that is very present in this episode and would become present in future episodes is his trolling of Doctor Who fans. Like his like trolling, like he's not too upfront about it, but just the idea of like this episode, the preview for this episode, there's like a new TARDIS interior, and everyone's like, "Whoa, we're gonna have another Time Lord?" No, we're not. It's not. In fact, it's not even a TARDIS. Fuck you. and then like, you know, future stuff like the little girl regenerating, and you're like, "Oh my god, who the hell is that?" And then that is like that's kind of like a wet fart of a reveal. And then the what's the other thing? Oh, naming an episode The Doctor's Wife. And everyone being like, oh, this is going to be about River. Nope, it's not. It's not going to be about River. It's going to be the best episode of Doctor Who you've ever seen.
Right? I was going to be like, I'm
River.
defending this.
Yeah. But I just think that it's funny that like he has like a series of doing this where he just is like, I'm gonna swing left when they think I'm gonna swing right. He does that a lot. I don't know. I think that's funny.
The name of the Doctor?
That was another one. Yes, absolutely. Another perfect example of him, everyone getting up in arms, like, how dare you? You can't tell us the name of the Doctor. And then he's just like, tee
You got mad.
Anyway. Okay, so the Lodger. The comedy in this episode, I think, is just like really well done, and I like the timing of it all, like the timing of the reveal of like, well, I'm glad that you love me because I'm your new flatmate. Like it's just so silly and charming and great.
Here's some rent.
I love how much James Corden plays Craig as just like, I don't know how to even argue with this guy. Like I don't know what to do. He's just so frazzled all the time. And it's just very entertaining. So, yeah. So anyway, it's I don't know. The idea of like somewhat establishing what a real not a real TARDIS, but like a TARDIS with like a working chameleon circuit would actually be like is interesting, I guess. Like being like, oh yeah, you know, there's a neighbor upstairs, and the fact that like it doesn't ever occur to him that there is no upstairs is like, I don't know. I just think that that's a really interesting twist. Very Shyamalanian. Is that what you would call that? Yeah, I don't know. It's good. Other people talk, please.
I feel like, well, okay, so I think the problem with this episode is that like we all really like it a lot, and so there isn't like a whole lot to talk about, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like what else? Like what else do you think about?
I have stuff to talk about, but I'm always trying to get Cass to talk more on the show. I really like there's a line early on the Doctor has where he calls himself an ancient amateur.
That's good.
And there's also moments like where Craig seems to be like kind of delighted by the Doctor as well. Like this guy, like I just they do a you believe why he wouldn't just kick the Doctor out immediately for being like weird.
Yeah.
We get
he makes what looks like to be one of the worst omelets I've ever seen.
But apparently it's awesome.
Oh yeah, that's true. Apparently it is really good, but it looks terrible. It just, yeah.
You know, that's kind of a cool. So 11 being really good at making omelets and football and like work. It's kind of funny that like, oh, this kind of weird dorky guy is like, oh, he's funny. He's good at soccer. But I feel like with Tenet, it would have just been too much like Chad energy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Though I would have liked to see Mickey try to boss 10 around and be like, I finally have the upper hand because you're in my TARDIS now. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like making rules and stuff. I don't know. I think that's there's a way to write. I don't think you would be able to write it the same way, you know, like at all. Like it would just have to have a totally different energy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I just love that this is predominantly a rom-com. Like obviously I'm a sucker for that. But I love that. I think it's really great, and it's just really nice seeing, I don't know, like a bigger guy get to be the romantic lead of a thing, of a thing, you know, like,
and like nobody comments
like
nobody comments on his weight, which is really nice.
Never.
Yeah.
That's so nice. I really like that, and like they let him be like crushable, you know, despite what society tells us is or is not attractive. I love that. I think it's great. Their chemistry is really good.
It's a very sweet dynamic of the Doctor kind of pieces together by talking to both of them that like they are both intentionally kind of limiting their ambitions and what they want out of life because they're afraid that it would mean letting go of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is adorable.
It is really adorable. What does Craig do for a living? Or is it supposed to be one of those jobs that you're just like, yeah, I don't know. That's the joke. It's like, you don't know.
It kind of almost it seemed like a city planning job a little bit. What did you think, Cass?
Well, because it's like he refers to it as like a call center job, but like when you go in and have like the Doctor talking to like specific clients, like that's not. I've worked at a call center. That's not what you do. So like I don't know if he just answers phones for like this other firm or like what. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And Sophie works there as well.
Yeah.
Right. Presumably that's how they met, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Am I misremembering this, or was this like at the time notable for being the first episode where you see the Doctor like shirtless?
It wouldn't be the first time because you see 3 showering in his very first episode.
Yes. Like singing opera or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking a post-regeneration shower. Before putting on his new costume. But maybe since then?
Yeah, I think that's true of modern Who, not so much classic Who.
Yeah, because the closest you get before this would be like 10 in Christmas Invasion, being in like gym jams,
the
like
PJs,
a gym jam shirt.
Yeah,
the PJs, but like that's kind of it.
But yeah, when 11 steps out in a towel and Sophie's like, "Whoa, hey,
yeah,
Greg's hot new roommate."
I love how he just like awkwardly kisses everyone on the 2 cheeks. He does like the European like kiss. And he's so slow about it because like he's just so delicate and just it's so awkward. The timing of it is perfect. I'm like, God, Matt Smith is kind of a comedic genius. I wish he could do comedy more. He's so good at it.
Morbius.
Is he funny in that?
I thought so.
Oh, okay. He does a little dance. I know that. A little shirtless dance. Yeah. But anyway. I don't know. Solid episode.
The A plot of this being that there is like a ship that is in search of a pilot, and so it's been like just incinerating people, just trying to get one that's like system compatible. They mentioned at one point that he's done it like 17 times.
That's also the same as the Clockwork guys and Girl in the Fireplace trying to find parts to replace the ship, and also the same plot as the episode pilot that introduced Bill.
Oh my God, you're right. I forgot about that. Because I was just thinking about
Yeah.
the Clockwork guys in Capaldi, but yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So weird. Man, he you know, I always like those compilations. We talk about like I think we've talked about this before, but like the you know, like you can find those like Aaron Sorkin compilations of like times that he's had characters say the same line of dialogue in like multiple shows,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
and things like that because he just reuses stuff that he thinks sounds good. And yeah, you could do the same thing with Moffat, where you just like take little tropes and just repeat them. But there's something comforting in that, I think. I don't know.
I will say I think the like the reveal that like the reason Sophie and Craig haven't been like lured upstairs yet is because they don't want to leave. Like they're comfortable being like sedentary and stationary. Like I think the computer program looking for like people who are wanting to be somewhere else is like really clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the one like we see this one of the I think the second victim is this like young woman who's like coming home from the pub, it seems like, and like they go out of her way to show her like her makeup's running and she's been like crying and like having a bad night, and so it's like, oh yeah, maybe she like wants to get out of town or leave or something.
Right. And I love that it ties in thematically with the rom-com of it all, which is that like neither of them want to go anywhere because they don't want to leave each other. But they haven't said that to each other before. So it just I love how it all sort of comes together. And they even have that great rom-com moment of the miscommunication where he suggests like, oh yeah, maybe you should leave. And then now for the first time, she's like, oh, maybe I should leave. And then that's when she gets lured upstairs. Having all of that sort of tied into like romantic comedy tropes is, oh boy, is that my jam. I love it. I love that. I like the doctor telling him not to touch the watermark, and then he touches it after having like the soccer fight with him, where he's just like, you're too good at stuff and everyone likes you more. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to what he says. I'm going to touch it. And then he gets sick and gets replaced in his job by the doctor. I love all of that. It's just so good.
And yeah, like after that, the doctor's like, you idiot. But then he like makes him breakfast in bed.
Yeah.
And Craig's like, his smart Craig is like, no, I have to go to work. It's important. And Eleven's like, you're important. Like, stay in bed. And it's like another thing where I don't know if I could see 10 being that like mothering. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on 10.
Yeah. Well, I think the overall plot was probably different back then.
Yeah,
like, it probably wasn't. Yeah, all of this, and there wouldn't have been a romantic comedy element to it because Mickey is pining for Rose, so it's a little bit more of a connection there. How do we feel about the headbutts?
Oh, like the mind meld thing?
Yeah.
It's fine. Like
yeah.
It's a way to impart information without going over information that the audience already knows. And like, I don't know, he's an alien. He can do weird stuff.
Yeah.
There's a part where he says, I am never doing that again. And I don't think that's true.
I think you're right. I think he has had to do it one other time, I think.
Listeners,
I don't remember what that time is. Yeah.
But I think just going back to what Cass said at the very beginning is like, there is such a visceral nostalgia of going back to this era of the show, because like we were so young and they were so young, and this was just such an exciting time to be a Whovian.
Oh my God. I mean, we're inches away from what I think is the absolute peak of this era of the show, which unfortunately is without the knowledge of what happens later. Without the knowledge of what happens later, it is the little girl regenerating in the alley. I think, because I just think it is like we were coming off of season 5, entering it's a new season of the show. We're all excited, and then the craziest shit we've ever, like, what? Like, I just think that is like the pinnacle of, like, I will never be a bigger Doctor Who fan than I was in that moment of seeing that scene for the first time. And then, you know, the subsequent disappointment that comes on the other side of that. But, you know, yeah.
Cass, do you think you have a moment like that for you?
I think it's actually in Pandorica Opens. Because I have more memory of watching series 5 than I do series 6. And series 5 was like the first full season of Doctor Who that I was able to watch like as it was airing. Because I caught like the Tennant specials, but like Matt Smith was like not my first Doctor, but like, you know, the Doctor that I watched live for the first time. So like I remember like where I was, like what I did that day before we like sat down and watched like Pandorica Opens. And I think that moment for me is the speech at Stonehenge where he's just like yelling up into the sky,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
But that little girl generating was pretty nuts, so
You know, it's like personally, I remember, you know, up until season 5, season 6, like the 11th era, that was when for me Doctor Who stopped being a thing I enjoyed by myself in seclusion, like being the only kid in my, or so I thought, the only kid in my town that knew what Doctor Who was, to going off to college and meeting like my nerdy college friends that had like, you know, Vincent the Vincent and the Doctor as like their wallpaper on their phone.
Yeah.
Like
the exploding TARDIS, like, yeah,
Absolutely.
Starry Night thing. Yeah.
Like, you know, would dress cosplay as Amy Pond, and it became, that's when Doctor Who became like a social thing of running to someone's dorm and being like, what did this mean? Or like, that one sucked. Is it bad now? What's happening? Like,
yeah. I think prior to that moment, it's so funny. I just have a thing about regenerations, I guess, that I'm just like, anytime that happens, I get fucking hyped, because the previous time that I felt that way was when David Tennant regenerates, says I'm regenerating, and then it's like to be continued. That was like, I'm getting chills just thinking about that. I'm like, oh my god. That was I never get more hyped than a regeneration that you don't know is coming. It's just like, that blows my mind. That just blows my mind.
And yeah, and going into, you know, we're just a few weeks now from the power of the Doctor, and kind of building up. I mean, who knows? Because, like, you know, going back to fan expectations and rumors and stuff, but seems like they might be really doing some fun, footloose, crazy stuff with regeneration soon.
Yeah, right. That's true. It's gonna be interesting. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. You know, it's my favorite time to be a Doctor Who fan is the sort of like just pre and just post regeneration era. Is always my favorite period of time because it's just so exciting. There's no other show that does this, you know? So it's just very exciting.
Have I talked about my theory as to why we might be getting like a Tennant adventure after Jodie Whittaker regenerates?
No, what is your theory?
Oh, okay. So in classic Who, there's like a throwaway line where it's like female Time Lords can choose what they look like. And up until this point, we've never had a female Doctor, but, you know, like the Doctor isn't a Time Lord, quote unquote, now, but like, I'm wondering if they're going to like play with that, where the Doctor is kind of like free trying on like appearances before they settle on 14.
Right.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
Like,
that's my theory.
At the end of Power of the Doctor, Jodie's like, "Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye, Graham. Goodbye, Ryan. I'm dying. Bye, yes. I'm sorry. I said you last. Oh, I said you last. Oh, no." And then
Yeah.
regenerates, and you think you're about to see Ncuti Gatwa, but then it's David Tennant.
Mm.
I'm positive that is how that's going to be like the big like what moment for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Who haven't seen the spy pics or the press releases or whatever. I think that's going to be the big shock. But I am absolutely bracing for the people who are going to be. Wait, I thought Ncuti Gatwa was going to be the. What is this? What the hell is this? What, it's just a white guy again? What the hell is this? Yeah, he's already been the Doctor. I'm waiting for that. That is gonna happen. That sort of energy is going to be in the air, and I'm like, ugh. I'm just like bracing for it.
I'm kind of delighted at the idea of new Whovians that are like sex education fans that like want to just see Ncuti Gatwa be the Doctor and have no idea who David Tennant even is.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like I follow this one Twitter account, and they're like, when Jodie Whittaker regenerates, what face do you think we're going to see? Ncuti Gatwa or David Tennant? And it was like unanimously everyone said Ncuti Gatwa. And I'm like,
no, they're
guys, I don't think you know how this is going to work.
They're
like
literally
what?
filming it right now.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, I'm like, what are you? What? Really?
Oh boy.
So I'm just surprised by that.
What I'm interested though, what's cool about that is the idea of whenever, we see, and I guess, what's our spoiler policy on this? Because I guess this is all potential. We don't know if this is going to happen.
Right, right. Yeah, we're theorizing.
Because there have been spy pics of David Tennant in kind of his costume, like running around.
Right. Like a variation on it, yeah.
And so it's like, what if he is the idea of David Tennant, the actor, emulating Jodie Whittaker? Like,
oh, that's interesting.
He's not technically 10. He is still technically 13, but he's just kind of wearing like a Fortnite skin of 10.
Right. That's interesting
because they work together.
Right. I saw another theory about like, because the other aspect of this is just that like she's not becoming 10 again because he doesn't look like 10. He's
aged.
He's 15 years older. So what does that mean? And I remember seeing somebody theorizing on what that could mean. And I was like, huh. But it didn't retain. I don't know. But I just think that is interesting. The idea that like it's returning. But also I hope that like when he regenerates, presumably either into 11 or 12, if they're continuing like because there's a theory that there's going to be multiple specials and that like each one is going to have a different Doctor at the helm leading up to 14. That whenever like he regenerates, if he's like, I'm ready to go, like instead of the like I don't want to go, like a call back to that, it should be like, yeah, no, I'm ready, it's fine. Let's do this. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I think that's all we have to say about the Lodger. We're already moving on to the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's aged well, and I think it's a good part for James Corden. I don't know why we stopped liking him either. I guess it was Cats. Was that kind of the and
it was the karaoke was the I think that being so ubiquitous, the carpool karaoke, I think just really annoyed the shit out of people. And then then he was like constantly doing like cameos and musicals. So then he got the theater kids hating him, and that's the last thing you want is the theater kids not liking you. So I think it's the combination of those things, because there's a lot of theater kids who love Doctor Who. So like, I don't know. Yeah. There's like a good,
for sure.
It's a big crossover. Yeah. Because is there a part in the universe better than playing the Doctor? Like, is that the like perfect pinnacle of like a part to play? I don't know. I don't know that there's anything better than that. So You like get to be a part of a legacy, but you get to put your own spin on it, and like that's the exciting thing about it. You know, it's kind of like doing Shakespeare, I guess, in that way.
Get to do a funny costume.
Yeah, you get to pick out like a costume. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway,
like Joker.
I can't wait to see what Shooty Gatwa's costume is going to be. I guess they were all together, like working through all of that. Very recently, they started like meeting. Yeah, because I guess like Russell T like let Shooty Gatwa read the first few scripts from his season, and everyone's losing their minds.
That's so cool.
Stephen Moffat says it's the best stuff that he's ever written, that Russell T's ever written. So, and I'm like, why is Stephen Moffat reading those scripts?
Yeah, are we gonna get another?
He's gonna
Moffat
write an episode.
Yeah,
yeah. He says no. He's like, I don't think I would come back like Russell T. But I'm like, you'd come back for an episode. Maybe you wouldn't come back and show run again. But like you're not gonna stop. Like, what the hell else are you doing? Your HBO show got canceled.
Call it The Doctor Kills Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah,
and it's like a robot.
Let's kill Benjamin Franklin.
Let's kill Benjamin.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Check out the Patreon, duelinggenre.com/support, and become a Patreon member and let us know you want Doctor Who content, and we'll bring it to you. But in the meantime, we'll be back next time with Robot of Sherwood. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Robin Hood's not real.